Maria Elizabeth is the owner, founder, and behind the chair stylist at Salon deZEN. It is in Alexandria, Virginia, where their motto is empower people to discover, create, and recreate who they are. If you missed the last time she was on the show, we got to know her journey. We got to know how she built the salon, the vision, and what it takes, and what they're looking for to work there. Definitely go back and check that out. And today we're going to talk about generational differences that she has noticed when it comes to hiring and working with Gen Z. Welcome back to Hairdresser Strong Show. I'm your host, Robert Hughes, and today I'm with Maria. How are you today, Maria?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Good, awesome. Would you give us a little bit of like a high level intro to you, your salon, and like your story for anybody who did not see the previous episode?
Sure. I've owned deZEN. I opened it up when I was 24. Have owned it for about 15 years now, and we're a very inclusive-minded salon. We welcome and embrace everybody of every shape, age, gender, all of that. And yeah, we just love to like rock out good hair and do good things in the world.
Nice. And anybody listening that wants to know more, definitely go back and check it out because we definitely get in deep into really kind of understanding, like a really good preview. I feel like anyway, into exactly who Salon deZEN is and what to expect there. So for today, we touched on it lightly on the last time we talked. We talked about some stuff that's going on, that some areas where there might be differences when it comes to the generations. Like a lot of the conversation that I've been having is the expectation in how to build their business and communicate with salon owners about their goals or the expectation for training and when I asked you this question when we were like chatting before the show, you brought up something different that I wasn't expecting you to say. And to give the audience some context, when Maria says inclusive, she also, she mentioned pricing. So you mentioned that there was a challenge with the Gen Z when it came to inclusive pricing and not pricing based on gender. Would you, one, tell us a little bit about that decision to do to run that pricing model and price that way, and what challenges did you have with that model, and whether it's with Gen Z or not, but also with Gen Z?
Yeah. I think it was about 7 years ago, something like that. I had been doing some, reading on kind of just how to think about the business of in the industry, big picture, long term. And I can't remember who it was that was talking about it, but their argument about switching pricing from gender to kind of service specific made a lot of sense to me. And I was like, oh my God, that's totally in line with my values. I want any single person out there to feel totally fine. They don't need to pick a woman's haircut, that kind of thing. And so we, as a group, I kind of brought it up to my team and, I'm saying, hey, I'm thinking like we should, do this. And, got their buy-in too. Got everybody kind of like got on the same page about it. And we're like, all right, we're going to like make this happen and transition. And so we as a team kind of went through and we're like, how do we want to change the verbiage of the haircut pricing so that one, it makes sense, it makes money sense, time kind of like a little bit on time based essentially, and that it's easily communicated to our clients because our clients, we have people that are old all the way down to young people. So, the older generation, they're not really thinking about that. Gender wasn't even kind of like, it was just all kind of taken for face value back then. And now it's obviously, different. And so we really, figured out like, okay, how do we communicate this to our clients and make sure that, it's not confusing, to them and they understand kind of why we're doing this. So, because my entire team was on board with it, they spoke to their client kind of one-on-one, talking about like how this is going to happen. And then we also sent out, messaging. I think it was also, Instagram and Facebook and an email, kind of like introducing the new pricing structure, and how to book the same appointment if they, if they were a, men's haircut before, they're a barber haircut now, that kind of a thing. And that's kind of based on time. And it is actually completely based on time. And then same, so we went from, woman's haircut to a haircut in style. So very simple little changes, but they could be very confusing for people. And we were able to do it in a way that people, one, understood what the change was and also why it was important, and that we were kind of moving the industry in the right direction.
All right, nice. So what type of I feel like we could expand into that, and I think that I would definitely like to have you on the show to like dive in specifically to a whole episode on changing, going through that process, because I think
Yeah.
that's something a lot of people want to know about, hear about. What also something that a lot of people want to hear about is what kind of the generational differences and what challenges and how you've overcome them. So what type of challenges have you run into with rising stylists or the younger generation?
I don't necessarily think about it like challenges with the younger generation or challenges with the older generation. It's just challenges with change, period.
Okay.
You know, it's like we're evolving, and it's the future is coming, to meet us. And it's like, okay, how are we going to do this? So, I have my older generation of stylists that when we were growing up, there were pronouns, like, you know what I mean? It was like, and same as me, right? I'm 40, so like that really wasn't a conversation being had. But I recognized that it was important to start to adapt and to learn from these young people coming into the industry, and how to navigate all of that. So it wasn't easy, but I did get some official training. Somebody that's like inclusivity and sensitivity training came in. We did a whole workshop as a team to kind of figure out like how to do it. We have different people in our salon that have different pronouns, and we had to work it through, right? It wasn't that easy, from, the older generation, learning how to make sure they're not misgendering people, making sure to ask for pronouns. When you misgender somebody, just apologizing for it and moving on. So with that though also comes just like exhaustion. You're tired. It's learning a new skill. And they was plural, like, right, the way that we were raised. We didn't really think about it in a gender context. And so all of those things are just new that we had to learn about. And so I definitely had some challenges where, the younger generation coming in, they are excited to have the change happen. They're excited that they are in an industry that's supposed to be progressive. And so you have to meet that with the realities of people that have already been in the industry and have learned certain things a certain way. And now we're learning how to relearn and teach ourselves, how to be more inclusive, how to be more sensitive on that. And there were some challenging points, to be, truthful, where, the younger generation were like, oh, they're misgendering me and they don't seem to really care. And they don't see why it's important, and, all of that kind of stuff. And I felt like I was a bit of the bridge between, the two sides of, that conversation, and recognizing where, the older generation is coming from. It's hard. Learning anything new is hard, even when you feel like it's the right thing. And also talking to, the younger people coming in and, telling them, being like, be patient. These people are on your side. They want this as well. And if you demonize them, you're going to turn them away from this, right? So it's like, it's kind of like finding that middle ground of like, hey, you know what? I'm on your side. I am not going to get it right 100% of the time, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to get better, incrementally, and they all understood why it's important. But just like learning any new skill, it just takes time, and you have to have like give people patience and grace, and that goes on both sides, you know. So I feel like that was definitely something that was challenging. You know, I feel like now we've kind of like worked the kinks out on it, and everybody's like kind of fluid with figuring out how that's all handled and managed. And I definitely would recommend anybody that's kind of figuring all of that out, like get somebody that's a specialist in it to help you kind of navigate it too, because as a business owner, it's hard to be stuck in the middle of like making sure that everybody is on the same page and understands what the ramifications are of getting things wrong, and also a third party, sometimes a neutral third party, is sometimes just more helpful to like convey a thought than people on different sides of the conversation.
That's I think that that's really interesting because when I hear people talking about making a change in their pricing model to remove gender, they're talking about the interaction and communication, the dialogue, the approach, the tone, the math, when it comes to the customer and business relationship, like the business to customer. But, but like, I don't really hear very many people actually at all talking about the challenge within. Like it makes a lot of sense. And I guess since we're on the topic, uh, why don't we expand on, since we're talking about it, and I think this is a really big conversation that people want to hear. So there's this internal challenges that a salon could have. It And that makes a lot of sense. And I agree that learning something new is the later on in life, the harder it is to learn new things, and also especially if what you're doing is contrary to what you were taught. You're taught something is right, and then you're trying to adjust because there's been new information and new perspectives that have kind of opened your mind to other ways of looking at things, and then you want to adapt those. Then you're going to constantly be in like constantly finding yourself tripping up on, oh wait, no, wait, let me rephrase that, or let me start over. I know that from just so many of the things in my life, and so talking to other people and working with a team. So I love that. I love the third party idea. I love this awareness to this challenge. So it's not just dealing with the customers; it's also dealing with your team. Now, on the dealing with the customers thing, do you have anything to say to somebody who has maybe 30 to 40% of their clients are men's traditional men cuts done, that and they want to go into a new pricing model, and they're worried about potentially losing 30% of their business? Do you have can
Um,
you speak to that?
yeah, I would be curious why they think that they would lose their customers just based on verbiage of changing.
The price differences are pretty extreme. It's in the salon owners that I've talked with, they it's I have like a group text message of a bunch of salon owners, and these conversations come up, and people are like, yeah, but if I raise my men's cuts that are $50 and I'm charging $90 for women's cut, that's like almost double the price. And I don't think that people are going to pay what I'm charging my women's prices.
So, but okay, so in my thought, that is that it's two different things, right? So, if your cuts that were traditional men cuts, generally, a clipper fade or whatever, um, that's a lesser time. So it's usually like, for us, I would say like a 30-minute, as opposed to a traditional woman's haircut, where you have extra length and you have to blow dry and it just takes a little bit longer. So if those men cuts don't need to be taking any extra longer of time, then I would think that the price could stay the same. It's just really about like changing it to um, gender neutral pricing model where it's not specific, because someone who identifies as a female might want to come in and get a clipper fade.
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, well, and I think that's where the conversation is why people who wouldn't even think about it necessarily, they do have clients who are not don't identify as male, or weren't born male, getting haircuts that they could get at a barber shop or a traditional men's cut. and and I think that's where the conversation is kind of sparking, is like, I feel weird charging this person over a women's cut, because it's like, just because they're a woman, that's literally the only reason why I would be charging them a woman's cut. But the work that I did was the same. However, I will also say that, personally, I spend, pretty similar amount of time cutting short hair that I do cutting long hair, because the cut plus the blow dry equals the amount of extra attention to detail I put into shorter hair in general. So if you charge based on time, like, what is there? You said something about, do you have like a barber cut price, or do you have? You do. So can you speak to the person that's having this kind of like going back and forth in their head?
Yeah, so I would think that if their, short haircuts take an hour and their long haircuts take an hour, I would say that you have to, you know, you need to pay yourself accordingly. An hour
Totally.
of your work is an hour of your work, whether you're doing short hair or long hair. If it's taking that amount of time on your schedule, then yeah, for us, everybody, for the short hair, um, everybody basically has a lesser amount of time with that client, and that is reflected in the price, and that's it.
Gotcha.
But I think that, if you are taking that amount of time for your short haircut, then you should charge for it.
So so basically, at the coming down to it, it's like, coming always go back to how much time are you spending, and stop thinking about the language that you're using. Think about like what effort you're putting in, what energy, how much time it's taking, and base your decision on that.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's business, right? So your time is money, and you should know exactly per minute how much you should be making. And it should be essentially equal. There are certainly higher dollar priced services and things along those lines, but you should have a basic standard of like, okay, you know what, my 30 minutes, I need to be making X amount of money. And so I price accordingly.
Totally. All right, cool. Well, I love that we were able to talk about this, and we touched on generational differences, but really, like you said, it's not about generations. Generations are a way to classify groups of people, but it's not necessarily about that as much as it's about the future and change and the direction that you're taking going in, and what you want out of your brand and your business, and how are you charging and maximizing, the value that you're, or maximizing your return on the value you bring through your business. I think that that's a pretty powerful place to start, for anybody who's out there thinking about having these questions and thoughts and doubts or concerns. So I really, I'm glad we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
Awesome. Well, I think this is great, and I think that, is there anything like else that you want to talk about that might, or say before we sign off, that has to do with these topics, or line of thinking, or line of conversation?
Yeah, I would just say don't be afraid of change. Embrace it. It's happening whether you like it or not. So, get ahead of it, and lean in, I guess they say, lean into it. And get some advice. Find some people that are more schooled in the area than you are, and listen to them.
I think that's very good advice. And so basically, don't kind of take something that I feel like most of us, at least in this point in time, and hope probably in the next few years at least, before it's completely forgotten about. But there was this place where you used to go when you wanted to have a movie night at home. You would go to the physical store, you would pick out your movie, and or your TV series. That was starting to happen, but towards the end of that time, and you would go to a counter and you'd pay for it, and you'd have to return it and by a certain time, and if you didn't, you got a late fee.
Yeah.
Well, now we have streaming, everything's streaming, Netflix, HBO, Amazon Prime, and that store that did not change is called Blockbuster, and
Right.
and that's kind of, there's like a relic. There's even a show on Netflix about Blockbuster, the last store in the country. So I guess if you want to, if you know you're going to stand strong and be that last store in the country that's doing things the old way, then that's your journey. But for the majority of us, we would be wise to heed the advice of paying attention to change and embracing it, and getting some help to make sure that you're doing it that aligns with your values and your brand. So I like this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your message and sharing your story today.
Thank you. Happy.
All right. Well, have a good week, and I'll be in touch, and I look forward to having you on the show again.
All right. Great. Thanks.
Okay. Bye bye.